Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today let's make a gravity ice dye. I'm starting out with the shirt turned inside out, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line from the shoulder portion of the shirt down to the opposite hem of the shirt. After I finished drawing my diagonal line on the shirt, I used my washable marker and I made a mark about every 3 inches on the shirt. And I'm going to make a small line where I've put each of these marks going across my diagonal line. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to use these as guides for when I fold the shirt before I gravity dye it. For this shirt, I'm going to use 2 of Dalula Company's dyes. I'm using Northern Lights and Still Waters. So my setup outside is I have 2 plastic sawhorses, and in between them I've placed a long piece of vinyl guttering. And I have the guttering upside down so that the flat part of the guttering is what's on top. I've placed the diagonal line straight on top of the guttering, and I'm going to grab those guidelines that I drew on the shirt. I'm going to pinch that part and I'm going to fold it down. When I pinch the fabric and I start to fold it down, I have the fabric underneath, so I have a couple layers of fabric, and I stop before I get to the double layer of fabric from the fold in front of it. I hope that makes sense. You can maybe see it through my shirt a little bit. I pinch and I fold, and so I have a single layer of fabric, and then you can see where it kind of doubles up. I don't add this on top of that. I stop before I get there. I'm trying to keep all of the folds about the same distance apart. That's the reason why I measured, and that's the reason why I'm doing this outside, is so that I can maybe kind of get it to sit nicely. By the way, my fabric is damp when I'm doing this. My fabric is not dry, which helps keep the fabric in place so that I can fold it. Even though my fabric is damp, I want to make sure it's really damp because I want to really encourage this dye to flow down the fabric. So I'm going to lightly spray it with some soda ash solution, which I've placed inside of a spray bottle. And I want to straighten up a few of these folds to make sure that the dye is going to flow nicely down the sides. So the vision that I had for this shirt was alternating colors between the Northern Lights and the Still Waters on each of the sections, the ones that I created with the folds. It is really windy where I live, and so the wind is blowing all the time. So that is my intended goal, is to, put Still Waters on every other fold and Northern Lights on every other fold. But as you're going to see, the wind kind of had other plans, so my dye gets blown around just a little bit. I also had a little bit of difficulty putting the dye exactly in the right spots in a couple of areas. So just for the record, if you are somebody that absolutely hates any kind of speckling on a shirt, gravity dye is probably not for you. And the reason why is it's very difficult with gravity dyeing not to get little specks of dye down on other parts of the shirt. It just happens, especially if you do your gravity dyeing outside like I do. You have a little bit more control if you do it inside where you don't have the wind and some of the other elements, but it's really hard to get no speckling on your shirt. So after I have the dye on the shirt, I'm going to add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash on top of the dye because I'm going to add quite a bit of ice on this shirt to try to force that dye down through the shirt and out to the outer edges of the fabric. And I want to make sure when I add all of that ice, I don't rinse out the original soda ash that was in the shirt from the original soda ash soak. The piece of ice that I'm going to use on this shirt, I made inside of I believe it's a plastic container intended to be used for pencils in desks, which I purchased from the Dollar Tree dollar store. Then I'm going to allow the ice to melt. And once this layer of ice melts, I'm going to come back and continue adding layers of ice until the dye is all the way out to the outer edges of the fabric. As you can see on this one side, it's a little bit light up on that one sleeve, but I'm going to let the shirt go. I'm not going to add more dye. I want to just allow it to be light if it's going to be light in that area. You know, most of the time I like to have my shirts very well saturated. That's one of the fun things about gravity dyeing is sometimes you have darker areas and sometimes you have lighter ones. After the dye was all the way out to the outer edges of the shirt, I went ahead and placed the shirt down inside of a plastic container, put the lid on the container, and left the container outside in the heat to process for about 36 hours before I began rinsing it. Then to rinse the shirt, I took it to my utility sink and I began rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash. I warmed the water up to hot and continued rinsing in hot water to rinse out the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Instead of going ahead and rinsing for a long time, I went ahead and did my usual soak by adding some hot water to my sink, adding some Blue Dawn dish soap to the water, and placing the shirt inside. When the water cooled off, I changed it out and I continued that process until my water was remaining almost clear. Then I placed the shirt along with some Dharma's Professional Textile Detergent into my washing machine and I washed it using a hot water cycle. Okay, so the shirt has been washed, dried, and ironed, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? I think this one looks really cool. You know, the Still Waters looks very teal on this shirt, and I think that mixed with the Northern Lights is a really pretty color combination. I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but I do have the alternating colors which I wanted, and I do think all the color splits and these colors look really pretty together. There is a little bit of a design made where I was folding the shirt over, so you can see a little bit of difference in that area. And I love the dye flow. You know, dye flow is the thing that I like the most about gravity dye. I just think it's really cool. And you never know exactly how the dye is going to flow, so it makes each shirt look very unique. And you know that one shoulder or one sleeve that I was a little bit concerned was going to be very light? It is light on that sleeve, but I think it looks really pretty. You can see where the color comes all the way to the edges. So even though it looked like it was still white, it's not really white. I mean, it is tinged with that pinky type color. So I really like these colors together and I think it works really well on this design. I think it looks really pretty. I have a little bit of yellow that's coming out of one of the colors down toward the bottom portion of the shirt. And I think that looks really interesting too. So overall, I really love the shirt. I think it turned out looking really cool, but what do you guys think? Please drop me some comments down below and let me know. And if you've enjoyed the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'll hit the bell, you'll receive a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.